introduction.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. So I'm here today. I want to show you I'm here with my newborn son, Henry. So if he gets a little fussy, just bear with me a little bit. I hope everyone's doing well during this crazy time. I mean, it's been a kind of a wild ride for us. My son was born a week before the world shut down and a week before all 5 of our businesses shut down. So it's been very interesting having a newborn and then also dealing with what's going on in the world. It's really made me step up as a leader. I know that, and try to make quick decisions that are best for our employees. We have 80 employees, and they're all like family to us. So this has been a really trying time, but I am very confident that we're going to come out okay on this. That America's going to come out okay on this. So I'm very optimistic about the future for us. So a little bit about my story. My family is a 3rd-generation farming family here in Southwest Montana. I'm in Bozeman today. It's so beautiful out. My grandfather, he was an immigrant from Norway, and he started a farm. And then my grandfather took over the farm, and then my dad. Was a really big dreamer, and he had this idea to take farm standing in the wheat field, harvest it, mill it, bake it, and sell it in their delis, which became Wheat Montana. So that started in 1980. So I think a lot of these experiences really have shaped me in terms of becoming an entrepreneur, a business owner, and really a lot of hard work that goes into it. And I think that's the biggest thing about being an entrepreneur is all the hard work that goes into it. And that all really shaped a lot in my life. So I went to Three Forks High School. I wish I had a program like this to tune into. I had no idea what I was doing with my life in high school. So I give you guys so much credit. This is a really good start as well. After that, I went to Montana State University on a women's golf scholarship. I studied political science and Spanish. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I wanted nothing to do with the family business at the time. I was very independent. So then after college, I was studying for the LSAT. And I was not a very good standardized test taker. Still, I'm not to this day. I mean, all through high school. So as long as you can be a good student and you study hard, like you don't have to always be, that perfect test taker. So I did very poorly on the LSAT, but during that time, I also applied for an MBA program at the University of Denver. It was an excelled MBA program, and I thought, let's give it a shot. After a week of being at school there, I realized that business is where I should be. It came very natural to me, and I was so happy to be in that program. It was actually an entrepreneur program as well, so I learned a lot about, how to come up with some business plans and some of the background to that. I'll talk more about business plans later because I don't think you need them. But so I learned a lot about that. We worked really closely with the engineering students, which I thought was really interesting because here they had great ideas and they were able to make these products. And then we were able to come in and help them or show them how we're going to sell them. So I think that was a really interesting dynamic that's helped a lot through my career as well. So when I was getting done with the University of Denver, I thought, I'm staying in Denver. It's young, it's hip. I'm not coming home. Absolutely not. And of course, my parents said, hey, we really need some help right now. We have a lot going on with our businesses and we just need a couple of years. I said, fine, I'll give you 2 years. And here I am 13 years later. It's kind of wild. So I came back to Montana after grad school and I found myself on the farm seeding peas and chickpeas that spring. I'm thinking, I just got my MBA and here I am on the farm, but I was helping out our family business. At the same time, we just bought the Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks. It's a 1910 historic hotel property. Our family knew nothing about hospitality, minus the fact we just love to travel and we know what good hotels are, but we knew nothing about hospitality. So we spent 9 months renovating and opened in the fall of 2010. So it's been 10 years, which is pretty wild. That summer and that spring was tough in the hotel industry. We had no idea what we were doing. We opened up a fine dining restaurant, a pub, as well as weddings. It was a lot to take in. So we had a general manager at the time and he just wasn't cutting it. And my parents said, hey, we really need you to step in and take control of this company. And so that happened in the fall of 2010. And the crazy part was I was 23 years old. I had never managed a team of people. I had no idea what I was doing. But I think a lot of times when you're just kind of thrown into it and you have to figure it out is kind of the best direction to go. So I fell in love with the hospitality industry. And then a few years ago, we said, we want to do another hotel project. We really like boutique hotels that are usually boutique hotels are anything under 100 rooms. We like them because they're fun, they're trendy, you can do what you want with them. People like that experience. They're so much different than a big box hotel. So we found a property here in Bozeman on 7th Avenue, And we think 7th Avenue in 5 years is going to be the main corridor coming into Bozeman. We think there's a lot of potential there as well. Okay, Henry. And so we found the RSVP Hotel. It used to be the Rainbow. It was built in 1950. It had shade carpet. It was in really tough shape, but we knew with a little bit of love that this place could come back to life. Our family likes to think about reimagining these old properties. I mean, they have so much character, and especially motor inns in this day and age. It kind of reminds us of the families in the station wagons, you know, pulling up. They're going on road trips. They're going to the national parks, and here they come to a fun, cool hotel. So this new hotel is 38 rooms. It's very fun, very trendy, very funky. We also put in the Farmer's Daughters Cafe. And that, along with my sister, has been a passion project for us. Of course, you know, we're farmers' daughters, and the food is just real food. It's whole, nourishing, really yummy food that we're bringing to the community. We thought it was really important to have this aspect in the hotel. It was one way to bring our community into the hotel and one way for our guests to interact with our community. And it's been a really good dynamic. So we're hoping to build on that once we reopen. But what I want to talk about a lot today, and it comes back to what we've done at this hotel, is branding. And we know Instagram is such a big deal, and we wanted to make sure this hotel was Instagrammable, because Instagram is technically free advertising, especially when your customers are putting photos out into the world of their great experiences. And it's so amazing how quickly the word spreads. And that was kind of our goal there. And I think for the most part, it was accomplished. So that brings me a lot back to my personal brand. And Matt, if you want to put up my Instagram page, I want to talk a little bit about why I started this and where I'm at, or the blog. The blog's fine too. Okay, great. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I chose to put my entire life and my family out on the internet, which sounds absolutely insane. But I really wanted to create this personal brand that starts to show people the person behind the business. And what I've learned is that people want to know the story. They want a story behind the business. They want to know the real person. They want to know what you're eating, what you're drinking, where you're traveling to get ideas for your businesses, and all funneled back to our businesses here. I don't know if any of you have ever listened or watched Gary Vaynerchuk, and he was the one that really inspired me to start this personal brand. And I highly recommend you guys looking into him. He said, in this day and age, if you're an entrepreneur, you really need to have a personal brand, because we're all salespeople in some sort. And it's crazy that on this platform, I can put out something about an event we have coming up or whatever it is, and I'm reaching thousands and thousands of people in one click. And as we know, that's so effective. So what I want to tell you guys today a little bit is about building your personal brand and how important it is. I mean, I know, like, as young people, you're all on social media. And I think we really need to think about, you know, what we're putting out into the world and how important that is and how you're building your brand now. I wish I knew that. Luckily, we did not have Instagram during college. We did have Facebook. And some of the things that I put out there, I am horrified that they're out on the internet. So that's one thing that I think it's really important to think about. You know, everything that we do in our lives is part of our brand, and it's how people might perceive us in the world or your business. So it's preparing you for the next steps of your life. I once had a mentor tell me to say, pick one word that describes you, and everything that you do in your business and your day-to-day life, like, go back to that word and are you doing it? So one word that came to mind for me is excellence. And I want you guys to really think about what's one word to describe you. So with excellence, I want everything I read, everything I watch to be excellent. A lot of times when I'm watching this garbage TV, I'm thinking, okay, is this excellent or not? You know, going back and kind of thinking about what I want out of my life and where I want to excel and strive. You know, even when I go to the gym, I'm thinking, okay, how can I be excellent here? Whether it be what I'm wearing or how I perform, you know, just really thinking about, am I striving to be that person? I also had another word that I thought describes me, and something that I hope to strive for, is consistency. You know, how many of us have started health routines or gym routines and they've only lasted, you know, a few weeks. And so for me, it's all about consistency. And in our household, it's all about consistency. We have kind of a checklist, my husband and myself, of what we need to get done every day to move the needle just a little bit. It doesn't have to be extreme, you know, whether it be we go for a walk every single day. I do a very short workout every single day. Like, it's nothing crazy, but it's consistent. And we think that's important. Same with our kids. We also have a 3-year-old, and it's how do we make time and spend time with her every single day that's consistent. Our businesses are the same. I have a checklist of things I do every day, single day, that are just little things to move the needle. And I think that's really important. So again, we want to know what we're going to put out into the world. And I think that's really important. We want to talk a lot about what I would tell my 18-year-old self. And there's so much that I would tell you all. And a lot of it's all about learning. I wish I was just grasping that, learning and reading and taking in as much information as possible to grow and to fail. I think failure is something we don't talk about enough, and it's really important. I know for me, I failed at getting into grad school, and I think that was a good learning experience. At the time, I was devastated, but I think, these are things that we can grow on. I know in my business, I have failed many times as a leader, and I've just grown from it. It was very hard at the time, but I thought, okay, how can I be better at this point? How can I be a better leader to my team? Sarah Blakely, who you guys all probably know, who started Spanx, she's multi-millionaire. She said, or her dad used to tell her every single day, or ask her and say, what did you fail at today? And I think that really stuck with me, is every day asking yourself, what did you fail at and what could you do better in that? So I think that's really important. I also think, at the point in your lives, you're all young, take risks. So you can afford to take risks right now in terms of starting businesses. It's harder the older that you get, when you start to have families and, more responsibilities. So take risks. I once had a mentor tell me to launch and then figure it out. And I wish I would have done this sooner. So let's take social media, for example. My brand has grown a lot in the last, I think I've been up for about 4 years, but I wish I would have launched 10 years ago when I was like, hey, I should start a blog and I should start blogging about Montana, because 10 years ago, that's when, the influencers who are just crushing it and have millions of followers and are so effective, that's when they started. And at the time I was so scared. I was like, I don't understand how to code. I don't understand how to, work these websites or social media. And I think it's important just to launch and then figure it out. A lot of our businesses had been the same way. The Farmer's Daughters Cafe, we didn't have a strategic business plan put together. We knew our concept was going to work. And that was the biggest thing, is we knew in our hearts that this was going to work. So we launched and then figured it out as we went. And I think sometimes we just have to take that risk, versus wanting to put out this perfect product all the time. You just got to figure it out. And that's what I've learned a lot when it comes to my blog and some of my businesses. Grad school, they were all about, you have to have a business plan. It has to be this perfect business plan. And I think a lot of times in business, we just have to figure it out as we go, and we learn a lot as we go. And that's a lot from my experience. One of my other mentors always said that we spend too much time like aiming, like we need to aim and fire a lot of times when it comes to these ideas that we have. The Farmer's Daughters Cafe is another great example. I said, hey, if I don't put out this product of this healthy, nourishing food, someone else is going to do it, and someone else is going to do it quicker than me. So I better get on there and get this done. So that was a big learning lesson. Also, not wasting time. I feel like I've wasted so much time in my life, especially when I was your guys' age. You can still like have fun with your friends, but knowing that you still need to get back and get the work done, or you still need to get rest, is so important. I always say it's okay to watch Netflix, but don't binge watch Netflix. Like, still enjoy, part of it, and just don't let it take over your life. And I wish I would have learned that so much earlier. So a couple of key mentors that I talk about today that I would love to put out to the world for you guys, that changed my life, and maybe it can for you too, is Ryan Holiday. He wrote this book called Stillness is the Key. And he talks about many great entrepreneurs, many great leaders, how they really use stillness to think of ideas and to come up with great concepts, and how it really made them be great leaders. So I highly recommend reading Stillness is the Key. And if I would have read a book like this at your age, it could have been life-changing. Someone else that I reference all the time is Darren Hardy. Darren Hardy. He is an entrepreneur, and he wrote the book, The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. And I feel like that has prepared me so much for especially situations that we're in with COVID-19. Being a young leader, a young entrepreneur, he has some great ideas in there. So I think that's all really important. So those are a couple takeaways that I hope to provide for you guys. But while we're talking about branding, Matthew, do you want to go to let's go to RSVP, a Farmer's Daughter. You have it pulled up. That's perfect. Let's check that out. And I'll show you guys a little bit. Scroll down just a little bit. So super important on our branding here is that when people see products or they see images of us, they know exactly who it is, because all of our images, if you keep scrolling a little bit, are all very consistent, and they're white and they're bright and they're pretty. And just having this branding is so important in this day and age. We wanted people to come into our facility and want to take photos. And so that's what we've kind of created on our Instagram, and it's inspired people to do the same. You know, when people are traveling, they are going onto Instagram and they are geotagging where they're going. And that's how they're finding us. It's pretty wild how effective that is. Or they're going to hashtags and they're saying Bozeman, Montana. And so once again, that's been really, really great for us as well. Let's go to Sacagawea. Let's check out that one too. Same thing. We just really want to stay on brand with all of our businesses. Imagery is so important in these day and age. So if any of you are good at photography or coding, very important skill sets to have. I wish I had those. Great. And then let's go to the RSVP website real quick. And then you can kind of see how it's all interconnected, all of our branding is. So if you scroll down a little bit, you can kind of tell it's part of our Instagram. It's part of who we are, and hopefully it sticks with people. Great. Thank you. Okay, I would love to open that up to a Q&A. I know that was a ton of information, but again, I'm open for any questions you might have for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hillary. That was great. I took so many notes here. I would be happy to take questions from anyone and everyone on the chat. You can just type in down there on the right. I've got one for you, Hillary. I love Gary Vaynerchuk as well. What do you think is one of the biggest things you've taken away from Gary and kind of his whole branding aspects?
Yeah, I think the number one is having a personal brand. I think it's so important. Like he said, he's like, people want to know the person behind the business. I think that's huge. And second, launching and figuring it out. I mean, his business, he started online as talking about wine on YouTube, and his parents had a liquor store. And here all of a sudden he blew up this liquor store because blew it up in a way that people like knew about him because he was just talking about wine on YouTube. He said he didn't know what he was doing. He said, I just created a video on my own and put it up to the world. And it was crazy how effective that was for his business. And I think he has so much good information. He's so in your face about things, but he has great information to put out to the world.
That's great. And he gets paid huge speaking fees to go talk to corporations and boards and sales conferences. I mean, that branding that he started a long time ago is really paying off for him now. Yeah. Like you said, starting 10 years ago, right?
Right. So, and you know, one of the really quick takeaway that he said as well, he's like, not everyone's going to like you. And I think that was one that also stuck with me, because that is true. When you are putting yourself out into the world and your brand, you're not always going to resonate with everyone. And that's okay. There will be a niche of people that will understand what you're putting out there, will appreciate what you're putting out there. But there will be those people that are like, this is awful. I can't believe this person is doing this. So just know that you're not for everyone all the time.
Great, thanks. So you have our first question. Was there something to help you to keep going with each of your failures?
Great question. I think it was the end goal. This is kind of funny, but my husband and I are big time goal setters. And we like to work backwards, which sounds kind of crazy. So we work back to like the end of our life, right? Whatever that looks like. And we say, what do we want our life to look like? Or what do we want, who do we want around us? And, you know, it starts with us like, we wanted a family, we want kids around us. And then what else do we want in our life? And we said, okay, we want to travel, we want to see the world. And then what else do we want in our life? Like, we kind of work backwards on that. And I think a lot of that keeps me going, the big picture, versus getting stuck in these little moments or my little bubble of, wow, that didn't work out. I'm super upset about it. And how do I get through that? Uh-oh. Oh, there we are. Okay. So I think that really helped me, is work backwards of your life. And then it also puts things in perspective, because there's a lot of times failures that I am so devastated about maybe aren't as big of a deal as I thought they were. And it's okay to take a little perspective on that.
Great. Along the same lines here, it looks like some of our participants are really embracing the failure part of this and not being afraid to fail. How many times did you want to just give up when you failed on something?
Oh man, is this like a monthly thing? No, just kidding. But there are, I mean, all the time. I mean, that's when I have to take the time, and I talk about this stillness aspect, where when I have these moments of, hey, I cannot keep going doing this, I just have to step away from the business and step away from the failure and really think about things. I started journaling in the last few years, and that's been really helpful to kind of get my thoughts down on paper on, okay, why am I upset that I failed? What did I do wrong, and what could I do better? And that's been really helpful to get my thoughts into place. And again, just stepping away from whatever it is and looking at it as a whole and saying, okay, how can I learn from this and what can I do better? I mean, even this situation with COVID-19, I'm looking at this from a leadership standpoint. And there was some poor decisions I made at the beginning of this. And I'm looking back and saying, okay, how can I be a better communicator with my team? What can I learn from this? Because this has been a big deal. This has it's been hard on all my employees, but what can I do better? And I think it's been a good time to step back and look at that.
That's great. Thanks. Okay, we've got a question here related to branding, and it's a two-part question. I'm going to ask you both of them.
Okay.
Do you have any advice for the students who have trouble looking forward to the day when they may need a brand? What can they do right now with their personal branding that helps them avoid trouble in the future?
Absolutely. I would say start your personal brand now. I mean, you guys are so ahead of the game. Start connecting with people now. But put out information, value added information now. I mean, if I was in high school and I started an Instagram page that said, hey, let's talk about how to get organized for school, or let's, posts that we always say people are so over ads in their face. They want value added information. So if I were in your situation, I would start my Instagram page and I would start putting out great tips and tricks for school or whatever your niche is or whatever you think you're really good at, and start putting that out into the world. So like I said, I put out, tips for getting organized for school, or things to stay focused during COVID-19, or maybe things that I'm eating before school because I want my brain to be really active. Start using this platform now. And it's going to be so effective. I mean, you guys, you can start off with having 1,000 followers, but in 10 years, by the time you're done with college, you're going to have 1,000,000 followers and an audience that's engaged. I think it's so important. And there's so much different topics that you can talk about, and a lot of different directions you can go in. I know for me, for example, I started out as, health, wellness type of a blogger, type of an influencer. And then it merged more into business. And now it's more into motherhood or balancing motherhood and business. So it's just amazing how it evolves, but launch now, do it now, put great information out into the world. We all have a different voice and we all have different ideas. And so just putting that out there is huge.
Great. Could you also talk a little bit about avoiding trouble in the future?
Yes. Like I said, everything you put out in the world is on the internet and it's there forever. So I think it's important to really be careful about what you're putting out there. I think especially as being young people, and it's so easy to post photos or to have other people post photos of you. And like I said, thank goodness Instagram was not a thing when I was in college. So I think just being really careful in terms of what's being put out into the world, where are you spending your time, who you're spending your time with, because again, it's out there, and once it's on the internet, it's there forever.
That's great. That's a great reminder. I've got a couple of questions here regarding risk tolerance around hotels and cafes and how you're making your decisions.
Yes. Oh, just a broad question about that.
I combined a couple. I just kind of turned it into an open-ended question for you.
Yes. So let's start with the restaurant aspect of things. So we and we're talking about COVID, right? About what's going on in the world a little bit. With our cafe, we started doing takeout only once the world started to shut down and people were getting really scared. Our sales weren't there. I mean, and then that comes down for us is if we can break even in a time like this, that's a win. But our sales were so low, we still had to pay employees. We still have really high-end food that we're serving. So that was a decision we made that we had to close, because how long can these businesses survive it? What I'm worried about as well when it comes to risk is I believe the governor is going to open Montana up today. We hope so. But is diving right back into opening up our restaurant again, will the sales be there? Because we don't know if people are going to be leaving their homes right away. So my next question is, how long can us and other small businesses, can we survive taking a loss if we do open up? Because we know we won't be until July, but probably not until the fall. So how long can we survive it? And that's where we're really weighing our options. I don't think that we'll open next week, just even though the world will start to open. I think we're going to give it some time because, again, I just don't know how long we can endure that. In terms of hotels, Sacagawea Hotel is closed. We will start opening that up, but once again, we have to make sure our overhead is so low that we're not just killing our bottom line. Our SCP Motel is open, and so it's a different property there where it's an exterior corridor. I run everything remotely. So from my computer, I send people their room, I send them their key codes. It's a little bit different. We have maybe one room a night. But again, we have lost so much revenue through May already. Everyone's canceled. It's going to be really hard to recoup. And I think everyone in the travel industry is really, really concerned about that. You know, tourism is the #1 industry in Montana. And how do we recover from this is going to be really scary.
That's great. Thanks, Hillary. The next one I have is, did starting a family cause a setback in your career?
Great question. It has created more of a challenge. But honestly, you know, when I had my daughter, she's going to be 3 next week. I all of a sudden wanted to work harder to show her, like, hey, this is what mom does. I want her to be a strong female, a strong business owner, whatever she wants to do. I really want to support her. So it was really motivating for me to have a family and to show her what I do every day. I think it was definitely, it's difficult balancing it all. And that was a big learning curve. It took me over a year before I finally sat down with my husband. I said, okay, I have to be more strategic about my time. I have to be more strategic about our lives and everything that I do. And it's been a really good thing. I think I'm more productive in a shorter amount of time than I was prior to having kids. I think back before children, I said, I had so much time on my hands. What did I do with my time? But it's really interesting how I am more productive in a shorter amount of time. And I have systems in place now where I have help getting things done in my life that really helps us move forward every day, and where I can still spend quality time with my kids. But it's a learning curve for sure. And right now he does not sleep at night. So we're back to that. So I'm learning a lot about newborns all over again, but it's been the most rewarding thing. And like I said, it's the best.
That's great. I've heard you say a number of times about balance and now kind of systems in place. It sounds like you approach your life from a very strategic perspective. How did you learn to stop and look at things from different angles and create a strategy around life?
Right. Well, it first stemmed from my mom. So with Wheat Montana, you know, back when we were growing up, they were in the height of their careers where they had to get up, they had to get everything done. They were struggling to make it all work. And my mom was up every day at 4:45. And I remember her every day just getting up, taking care of herself, getting the house ready, making breakfast before we got ready. And it really stuck with me once I had kids, especially saying, hey, you know, I need to strategize in my life. So that's been a big one for me, is I always think the early bird gets the worm. I'm up really early before my kids and my husband, and just trying to get a fresh start on the day and a head start on the day. And that's been so helpful to me. And I hope that can maybe resonate with some of you guys. And then start putting more systems in place. My husband, he's a wealth manager, and he is very, you know, goal setter. He is strategic, and he's really helped me as well put things on spreadsheets. You know, time blocking is really huge. And I think a lot of you could use this in high school, is just setting a certain amount of time to get a task done. And when that time is up, you're moving on to the next task. So for me, email is something that is so bombarding to me. And I really dislike email. I'm just throwing that out there. I think we send too many emails in this day and age. And people, they want your time all the time. So you have to really be strategic on how you're going to respond. So I time block emails every day. I do a 15-minute session in the morning, a 15-minute session around lunch, and then a 15-minute session to wrap up my day, and that's it. And if I don't get to all of them, I don't get to all of them, but I know my priorities. Every morning when I wake up and I do my journaling and I read my daily stoic, I think about my priorities for the day. I have my top 3 that are going to move the business. These are non-negotiable. I have to get these done in the amount of time that I have. And then I have 4 more tasks that if I get those 3 done, I can move on to, but they're not as important. And I think it's really good to have focused work. And a lot of times in my life, I would be email, and then I'd be phone call, and I'd be text, and it would be all over the place. And again, one of my mentors says that it takes 25 minutes to get refocused. Let's say you're working on a paper or an essay and someone texts you and you go answer the texts and now you go back to your essay. It takes you 25 minutes to get refocused. So I think just having more of a strategy for your day and your time. And it's amazing how much extra time I have when I do this system of time blocking.
Great. How do you choose your mentors?
Great question. A lot of it stemmed from, my personality. I am like type A, go-getter. So that's why someone like Gary Vaynerchuk really stuck with me, because he is the same. Darren Hardy was similar. And then Ryan Holiday just kind of fell into my lap in terms of a whole new way of thinking. And I think you just have to keep reading until you figure out who you really want to invest your time with in terms of mentors. And I think that's been really huge for me. I've read a ton of self-help books. I mean, all over, Jim Rohn, all these guys. And I've just kind of honed in on a few that have been really valuable for me. So I think that is important to stick to one or two versus, reading thousands of books and just keep reading them. But me and my husband have this strategy where if we find a really good book like Darren Hardy's, we reread it 3 times because we feel like there's so much valuable information out there. So I think you have to just continue to find your people and then go with it.
Great. Thank you. How about 3 biggest mistakes to avoid?
Ooh, that's a good one. Listen. This is one that I've not been very good at when I was younger, is really just listening to people, listening to your staff, listening to your employees, listening to your mentors versus just being so quick to react. I used to be a really reactive person when a so-called fire came my way, which they do all the time. First thing in the morning, there's a problem at work. And I used to be so reactive. And now I really take a step back and just kind of breathe and say, okay, we're going to handle it and we're going to strategize. We're going to figure out how to get it done versus being really reactive. So that was one that I've learned. And okay, what was the question one more time?
It's 3 biggest mistakes to avoid.
Okay. Other mistakes. Let's see. I think, like we said, putting what you put out in the internet is really important. I think that's one that you want to avoid. And I think you want to avoid overthinking things. I think it's important just to put out information into the world and then see how the world reacts. And then you can go from there and make changes as you go. But I think overthinking things, I've done way too much in my life.
Great. A question about your branding, about building your website and social media pages. How long did it take? What was the effort?
One tip for you guys, learn coding now. Computers are our lives, phones are our lives. We all know that. It's really important if you guys could learn some of these skills now. I wish I had them. Graphic design, all these, it took me a while to get my first launch going. I did hire a company and I spent way too much money on it. And I could have, now knowing what I know, I probably could have done it myself. And, but I really wanted to be strategic in terms of my messaging the first launch. And so it took me less than 6 months. But like I said, I wanted to get something out there and work on it as I went. So if I would say a couple of months, you get something up and running. My second website, which is the current one, it's a much easier platform. It's called Squarespace. It's very good for amateurs like myself. Honestly, if I were someone, I would get a blog up and running in the next few days. You don't have to have a ton of content up there. Just have a landing page. One thing about websites that's so important versus Instagram and Facebook is we don't own Facebook. We don't own Instagram. So those platforms could be taken away from us at any point in time. Having your own website that is yours is so important that if something happens, you have that resource that's your own if Instagram goes away. So I think that was one of my other motivations to get something up and running really quickly.
That's great. What do you think your next project will be?
Great question. Okay, we're going to talk pre-COVID because there was a lot on the docket. One other side project that we worked on, a couple of things that are on the docket. So we own a bunch of travel lodges, Super 8s. I think of these as hotels that aren't very sexy, but they are hotels that generate money for other hotels. So my goal is to have one more of those type of properties up and running by next year. and then working on our next hotel project. So we were in the works with a project in Missoula. We're kind of at a standstill right now, but the Missoula is just such a hot spot right now. So we want to do another boutique hotel there. And then also bring a Farmer's Daughters Cafe to Billings. That was also in the works. We think that that concept would do very well in Billings. We think it's a good market for us. So those are the two projects. My goal was before COVID is to have 10 boutique hotels in the next 15 years, which is still doable. It's just going to take some time for travelers to get excited about traveling again. So I think a lot of those projects will be on the back burner for a while. During this crazy time, I always tell everyone, like, we should not waste our time while we're all at home. And, we should never get bored. That's the other thing too. So I've really spent this time working on my personal brand, creating content every day. What you see on Instagram, especially from an influencer standpoint, it takes a lot of time to post a photo. You have to edit it. You got to come with a caption and da-da-da-da. I'm putting out content. And that's been my biggest goal for this whole COVID at home in shelter debacle. That is actually working out in my favor as I'm gaining my audience. I'm engaged with my audience. So I'm hoping when we get out of all this, I have a whole new audience as well that's grown, that I can say, hey, here's new projects, come see us, and away we go. So that was a long answer, sorry.
That was a great one. What do you feel is the hardest thing about starting a business?
Oh man, there could be a couple. Depending if you want to, if it's a grassroots project in terms of funding, and how are you going to get the capital to get started. I know there's a lot of great mentors out there that can help you if you do need funding. Liz Marquis, who's been who's been very involved in YE. She was a mentor to me, and I ran a lot of business ideas past her. So I think, reaching out to our community, whether it be through the chamber or I'm on the Women's Foundation board, there's a lot of mentors if you need funding. I think the second thing that's the biggest challenge is that risk. I mean, I don't know how many times I had ideas, but I was too afraid to fail. And I was scared to see, like, what would people think if it didn't work out? And I mean, the Farmer's Daughters Cafe, there were moments last year that we said, this might not work out. And I go, how embarrassing is this going to be if this doesn't work? But I think you work through that. And if you're passionate enough about your project, it will work out, and you'll make sure it succeeds.
That's great. How can our students stay on track and keep motivated while they're under the stay-at-home order, like you mentioned?
Oh my gosh, it is crazy. I think, like I said, the biggest thing that I've been reading that my mentors are telling me, they said, don't waste this time. This is valuable time. We literally have no distractions in terms of, we can't just go to restaurants, or, we shouldn't be leaving our house much. We can't be hanging out with friends like we used to. I think we have no distractions. So this is times to really, like I said, read as much as you can. Maybe this is the time to find that mentor. Look into some of the people I suggested, see if they resonate with you. Don't waste this time, whether it be starting a new fitness routine or a new goals, like working on your goals. Writing down I have goals through this whole thing, and every week I have a new COVID goal. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this through the week. And I think that's been huge. This is a really important time. Don't waste it.
Thanks, Hillary. If you could change anything about your businesses, what would it be?
Very good question. Let's see. There's a lot. So let me see what's the best one. The biggest thing I would change about our businesses right now, I would like our businesses to be more on a nationwide level. I think that we captivate our audience in Montana really well, but it's how do we reach the travelers that are coming to Montana? How do we grasp the people that are coming through? How do they find us? We just hired a PR team prior to COVID, and just trying to get the word out there. The Lark in Bozeman's a great example. They were featured on the Today Show, and it really made their business occupancy go up. So it's like, how do we reach that audience? Obviously, we all know what's going on at the Yellowstone Club, and how the trickling down effect of the economy in Bozeman is so affected by the Yellowstone Club. And it's, how do we connect with those people saying, hey, stay with us. If you have an early flight or a late flight, how do we grasp that business? So I think it's just reaching a bigger population, and how do we do that? So we're working on that strategically every day. And that's been one of my goals through this whole shelter in place is how do I reach other people and how do we reach a bigger audience?
Awesome. Thank you very much, Hillary. We're coming up on 45 minutes, which is about right perfect on time. I'm going to unmute Mr. Jim Masker so that Jim, oh, hold on, Jim. Let me hit it again. There you go. You're up.
Am I good to go?
Yep.
Hey, Hillary. Wow. I have been taking notes like you read about here, and I mean this sincerely. You have given me so much to think about, and not just think, but so much to get going on. And giving up your time today, as I said when we started. I mean, this is so much value added to whatever I was going to be doing for the last 45 minutes. So, on behalf of youth entrepreneurs and on behalf of youth entrepreneurs educators, many of them I see here, thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, and giving advice. I just can't thank you enough. So,
thank you. That means a lot.
All right, if there's not any more questions, if I could remind everyone to please write your name, your school, and your educator if you've not done so before we end the meeting. And again, if there's anything you'd like to say to Hillary, you can leave it in the chat box and we'll share that with her later. And Hillary, again, thank you so much.
Of course. And honestly, if anyone wants to reach out to me via Instagram, my blog, or my email, please, anytime you guys have questions or come see us at the Farmer's Daughter, I'd love to meet you all.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Hillary. Bye-bye.